Manga, I reincarnated as a Crazed Heir. The story revolves around a martial arts prodigy known as the 10-strike finisher for his ability to knock out any opponent within 10 moves. Jagak Yang was poised to become the leader of the Great Murim Allowance, a coalition of righteous martial arts sects. But before he could take the throne, he was betrayed by jealous rivals and assassinated. In his next life, Yang finds himself reincarnated as Ma Chunso, the second in command of the wicked Shining Light cult. Chunso is a bit of the playboy, and he spends most of his time seducing the cult's female members instead of honing his martial arts skills. Yang faces a dilemma. Can he stay true to his principles despite being surrounded by evil? Will he resist the temptations of power, wealth, and beautiful women? Or will he succumb to his new life on the dark side? The story starts as a mysterious martial arts cult located in Guangxi province, and apparently, this cult, called the Guangmyung cult, has some vicious demon arts and demonic humans, and they've been ordered to be annihilated because they're a force of rebellion. Okay, that sounds serious, but wait, there's more. At the center of this cult is the strongest art that reigns at the top of all demons, called the Heavenly Demon God Art. Yeah, that's right. It's so powerful it has 3 words in its name. Plus, it has the fiercest warrior who can take down any opponent single-handedly. The outsiders call this place the Demon Cult, and apparently, if they head out into the Central Plains, the world would fall into a chaos deeper than ever before. Oh no. But fear not, because the first son of the Murim Union leader, young Jagak, is here to correct these people. And as their leader, he's congratulated on completing his isolation training. It looks like there's a lot more in the story for the young leader in this journey. 10-strike star, who is the Murim Union leader, young Jagak, has the title of the most technical martial artist because he could counter any art within 10 strikes. But as with any good story, there is political turmoil, and everyone is lusting for the seat of the next leader. Amidst all this chaos, Yang is poisoned before he even turns 30. He wakes up to find himself trapped in a place with luminous orbs. He thinks he's been kidnapped by a significant group, but there are too many parties that could be suspects. He starts to focus on recovering his strength and finds grain beads that will last him a few years. However, he notices something strange. He looks in the mirror and realizes that he is in someone else's body, and he has no idea whose it is. He tries to find traces of his own arts but can't. He does find a martial art that the owner of this body was learning, which is vicious and strange. The owner of this body died of ki overload because he sent his energy to flow into the wrong body currents. But instead of freaking out, 10-strike star decides to give this new art a go, and wouldn't you know it, he becomes a total boss at it. He even gains 240 years worth of ki. Talk about a blessing in disguise. He cries a bit and makes the dead guy his master. It's like a weird martial arts bromance. Soon, he gets out of the weird cave when a man faints when he sees him. What a weirdo. When he reaches the Guangmyung cult, all the warriors kneel in front of him, declaring him as their young leader. Yang gets shocked after hearing this, as he now realizes that he is now the leader of the demon cult that holds the exact opposite values of his previous life when he strove for justice. He even faints when he figures out that he has reincarnated into the body of the heavenly demon. Yang is having a hard time coming to terms with this new reality when he wakes up to realize that this isn't a dream. It's quite a bummer, actually. On the other hand, the Sword Pillar Palace princess, Manhwa, is not too happy about the young leader returning after 3 years. She really wishes that he had died there, which is kind of mean. What's more surprising is that she was all set to marry him a few years ago. It's clear that she doesn't enjoy him lusting after women, since their first meeting was quite weird, when he had proposed that they have sex when she was just 14. She just can't believe that he has changed even one bit after 3 years in isolation. Back at the small Myung Palace, it's been 4 days since Yang recovered his conscience. Good thing that he has learned about a few things, including that the young leader's attitude was not the best, and quite unacceptable by Yang's level. People here call him the small lust ghost, since he lusts for women quite a lot, which makes him a crazy man. Yang wasn't hoping for much from the demon cult anyway, but to think that he has entered the body of the worst possible person is just sad. Secondly, his father is the leader of the demon cult and is one of the 3 supreme beings whose name is Mate Pyong. Plus, this man has lived his whole life without exerting any effort, and he was even bad at the arts. His social skills were a mess too, and his name, Ma Chun-so, is synonymous with a disaster. Of course, the most reassuring thing is that this body is just 19, and Yang has decided to accept the path that has been set for him. He tells Ma Chun-so that he will live his own way when he challenges him to try and maintain his boring ways in the demon cult. This is when Manhwa arrives in the room, and Yang obviously has no idea who she is. Yang should really not talk to others politely in this body, but old habits die hard. He tries to be rude and figures that she is his servant as she can easily enter his room and is dressed in plain clothes. Manhwa gets really angry when he refers to her as his mere servant, and she leaves his room after giving him a really hurtful look. She'd rather kill herself than marry someone like him. Then, Yang goes over the bodyguard Yul-tak's room to find who was a friend of Ma Chun-so and as trashy as him. Yang even considers killing him for a second, as he suspects that he has noticed his strange behavior. Yul-tak tells him that the young leader never talks without cursing at least 3 times in his sentences, and informs him about the young cult heir gathering at a restaurant nearby. Yul-tak advises him against going there, but how can Yang let such an opportunity just slip from his hands? It looks like Yang is really going to the gathering, while Yul-tak explains the structure of the Myung cult to him and states that there might be threats to the Gwangyang Palace because the leader, Ma Chun-so's father, has disappeared. No one sees Ma Chun-so as the next leader since he is unintelligent, weak, and his actions are extremely shameful. Yang is even more shocked to find out that the Myung cult has over 1 million members, which is why the emperor has declared them as the enemies. Apparently, the right to choose the next leader is also split amongst the 2 Myung palaces, 7 side palaces, and the Council of Elders. It looks like his reappearance has changed things though, which is why Yul-tak is a bit worried about him going to the gathering. On the other hand, Manhwa has reached the restaurant to attend the gathering and propose marriage to one of the other heirs, so she can get out of her current engagement. However, no one catches her eye, and she is even more disgusted by Chun-mu, who is as large as a troll. This is when Yang makes his appearance as Ma Chun-so, and everyone pays him their respects when he meets Manhwa and mistakes her for a servant yet again. Manhwa wonders why he has come to the gathering, since he might be in danger there. Chun-mu makes fun of Ma Chun-so's lust for women in front of the whole gathering, and even insults Yul-tak, but Yang doesn't look bothered at all and enjoys his delicious meal. It's obvious that Chun-mu is trying to provoke him, and Yang realizes that he has forces ready to deal with him as he is brazenly taunting him in public. He finds out that he has the authority to punish others, therefore he calls Chun-mu a dog and a toad to get a reaction out of him. His plan works when he actually does try to punch him, which is why Chun-so gets an opportunity to accuse him of an assassination attempt. Amu is taken aback by this accusation and tries to cover it up by asking for forgiveness, but Chun-so is not ready to forgive him, and is even ready to meet his father to complain about him. Back at the merchant palace, Amu's father is extremely angry at him for doing something so foolish, and orders his son to lock himself in isolation. It looks like there's an air of war hanging over the whole cult. It's been 2 years since Mate Pyong, the cult leader, had left, and the council leaders, as well as the 7 side palaces, want to elect a new leader now. However, the young leader has appeared, which is why the Merchant King has summoned the Golden Cavalry Squad leader, Chun Birong, to discuss the situation with Chun-mu and Ma Chun-so. Birong sees this as an opportunity to shower the young leader with gifts and get him on their side. On the other hand, Yang wants to become the cult leader to control the demon cult and believes that the Merchant Palace is the perfect first target. He tells Yul-tak to bring the hierarchical records as he needs to know who to fill the Myung Palace with. Yul-tak disguises him and takes him to the records even though he thinks that the young leader has lost his mind. On their way, they argue about the demon cult's need for self-defense after the emperor declared them as enemies, where Yang figures that his title of the small lust demon is a huge problem for his personality. They arrive at the library, which is surprisingly a famous place to those who listen in to gossip and rumors. When they go inside, Yultak has a weird conversation with an old man, who throws him out and locks the doors all of a sudden. Meanwhile, the old man goes to a weird door and tells another old man that the young leader is there to look at the records of names. The new old man is now intrigued and wants to meet Ma Chun-so himself. The first old man leads Ma Chun-so and Yultak to the room, where the other old man is sitting who greets the young leader, even though he is in disguise. Ma Chun-so, or Yang, is surprised to see that the old man has pictures of the best martial artists on his wall and wonders who he is. Ma Chun-so tells him that he wants martial artists to live in his palace when the old man reveals that his name is Tong Jagal, and it looks like Yang recognizes him from somewhere. It turns out that Yang knows Tong Jagal as he was called the Core Intelligence in the Central Plains, who was his senior when he had first entered the Wind Dragon Squad. Yang had spent so many years near him. How did he end up in the headquarters of the demon cult? Yang figures that he should be 40 years old by now, but it seems like he is over 100 years old and is in a wheelchair. Jagal tells him that he is being noticed by people everywhere now, therefore he shows him the hierarchical records. Jagal clearly had misconceptions about the young leader, and he's trying to change that after meeting him. He isn't the insane person that he thought. Jagal truly is smart as he figures out Ma Chun-so's whole plan of getting the cult leader position. This is when Ma Chun-so tells him that he will burn this place down the second he becomes a cult leader, when Jagal tells him that he has higher chances of getting to the top if he gets his help. However, Ma Chun-so tells him that he just doesn't want to become the leader, but he actually wants to change the ways of the entire demon cult, and Jagal obviously thinks that his plan is a big joke. This is when Ma Chun-so shows off his heavenly demon god arts, which shocks Jagal even more. However, he continues to laugh at his intentions and starts begging for his life. Jagal eventually reveals that he is the head of the Lowlife Gate and says that he is ready to help Ma Chun-so in return for the military advisor of the Murim Union, Jagal Moon-dung. It's clear that he wants revenge, and Ma Chun-so concludes that he is too dangerous to be kept alive until Jagal tells him that he can't obtain the demon cult just with his martial arts, and gives him a mask used by an ancient hero. It stops all poison and prevents people from recognizing whoever is wearing it. Jagal also tells him to bring more than half of the kings and elders to his side before the Myung Festival to become the leader. And he needs to make a new image to gather the support he needs. It looks like Ma Chun-so needs to go out undercover to fulfill his mission, and offers Jagal to shift to the small Myung Palace as well. Jagal tells him to start with Ui Taesik, who is addicted to drugs and lives in the slums, and Chun-so has got the perfect target to start polishing his image in front of the people. Ma Chun-so and Yultak's next destination is the Tear Creek village, where the lowest of the low live, and none of the palaces care about the people living there. Therefore, their lives are nothing more than trying to survive in their straw houses. Of course, now the young leader has come to see them, and so many people gather to welcome him. They meet Jang Chun, the village chief first, who takes them to a comfortable house. Chun-so feels that there is something off about the people living here, and he figures that it is a nice place to farm, but no one's farming here either. On the other hand, Jang Chun goes to a masked man to give him some money, who is curious about why the young leader has come to the slums and asks about Taesik. Jang Chun assures him that he is gambling away in the dens, and the masked man decides to give his daughter as a present to the young leader. This masked man clearly has an agenda against Taesik, as he wants him to fall as low as himself. Chun-so is walking around the village, and he feels that it is strange that there are fewer people than the houses in the village. Maybe they just die off early like all the poor people out there. This is when a woman kneels in front of him, and he finds it suspicious that she is wearing clothes meant for winter on such a hot day, and he removes a bit of her clothing to find her legs to be filled with weird spots. Meanwhile, Jang Chun reaches the gambling den, where he finds out that Taesik is probably with his daughter. He tells one of his men to bring him there, since they have to send his daughter to the young leader. On the other hand, Ui Har-young is discussing the arrival of the young leader with her father, Taesik, and decides to leave the village now that the rest of the people are distracted. She gets a bit worried when some men take her and her father to Jang Chun, and is shocked when they bring her to the gambling den. She guesses this is where her father works, and you can see the disappointment on her pretty face. The other men give her father some drugs, so he lets her go to Jang Chun alone. When she meets Jang Chun, it becomes apparent that his intentions are quite evil, as he tells her that she can leave this place with her father if she goes to the young leader's bedroom at night. Poor Har-young knows that the young leader is known as the little lustful ghost, but she can't even refuse to go since Jang Chun threatens to sell her to a brothel and cut off his father's limbs. Therefore, she has to agree to do what she's being asked, so he tells her to get ready. As night approaches, Chun-so arrives at his luxurious lodgings where he can't stop wondering if the villagers sell drugs to earn money. According to the rules, he can't let the village chief go free if he is running a drug business in the slums. This is when Har-young arrives to tell him to embrace her, so he figures that she is definitely sent by the village chief. Suddenly, the lights go off, and she starts crying, which confuses him. Even though he can't do anything with her, Chun-so tries to not send her away immediately as it will be suspicious. He even asked her if she was forced to come to him and makes the first move when she denies it. After a while, he gets tired of playing games with her and uses one of his skills to make her unconscious. She wakes up all naked and believes that they did something. Suddenly, she starts crying again and asks him to save her father. She pretends to look uninterested and tells her to narrate the whole story to him, but he gets shocked out of his mind when he finds out that her father is Tae-sik, the man he had come looking for. After hearing her story, he concludes that the situation is worse than he thought and goes over to Yul-tak, ordering him to consume the drugs that Har-young has brought. Eventually, he forces him to take the drugs and observes the effects. It is clear that he is not happy with the village chief after finding out. Tae-sik is heavily drugged and only wants to see his daughter, but only gets beaten up by Jang Chun's men who dislike him for being a big shot in the past. They leave him bleeding and go out to mock all the drug addicts who are locked in their dungeons. Suddenly, Chun-so arrives and kills one of them while wearing the mask that Jagak gave him. Then he goes over to Tae-sik, who is in a really bad state, and it looks like he might be about to die, when he requests Chun-so to not let anyone know about his death. Maybe he should have just asked to be saved instead. Chun-so decides to save him anyway and uses his body correction infusion, which works when Tae-sik starts absorbing his inner energy. In the end, Chun-so is only left with trickles of inner energy, but at least Tae-sik seems to be more than all right now. Tae-sik even tells him about how he lost his wife because of his lust for power, after which he left martial arts and started using drugs to forget his pain. Tae-sik figures that he is from the small Myung Palace and pledges his life to serve him in return for saving his life. They shake hands when Chun-so decides to leave, but not before telling him to do whatever he wants with the village chief when he comes to visit with the young leader. Of course, he asks him to leave the young leader alive. The next morning, Chun-so meets Jang Chun and praises the gift he sent him the previous night. He plays along with him and finds out that they grow the drugs with the flowers called the opium poppy, making Chun-so glad that he is spilling everything he needs to know. Chun-so offers to let him smuggle the drugs outside the village if he shows him the place where they produce it. Therefore, he takes him to the gambling den where Jang Chun tells him to cover his face. Jang Chun gives him a tour of the whole gambling den, where Chun-so finds it odd that he is trying to hide Tae-sik from him. He's even more disgusted that Jang Chun makes everyone in the village addicted to the drugs for his personal gain. This is when Tae-sik makes a smashing entry, and he looks ready to kill everyone who has ever wronged him. Jang Chun and his men make the mistake of mocking Tae-sik once again, but he has come prepared to give them a fitting reply in his own way. They are shocked to find that he isn't all drugged up, when he declares that he will inflict pain on every part of them. He starts taking them down one after the other and looks unstoppable when he finally reaches Jang Chun, telling Chun-so to leave if he doesn't wish to lose his life. Of course, he leaves as everything is going according to his plan, while Tae-sik uses all of his martial arts skills to send every one of the men present there to hell. They all even try to attack him together, but everything's useless since he can dodge as well as he can attack. On the other hand, Chun-so wonders about the person behind Jang Chun, but decides that it's a lost cause for now. However, he burns down all the poppy plants throughout the village, so that there are no more drugs in the village while all the villagers watch. The villagers think that it's the sun god who has come to rain fire on them, and he concludes that he needs to be here for the people who get hopeful at the mere sight of him. He can be any god that they want him to be, as long as he does something good for them. The next day at the village, all the villagers are gathered outside Chunso's place, but he is nowhere to be found, which makes Yoltak lose his mind. Suddenly, he appears in front of him and decides to go outside and see the villagers, while poor Yoltak tries to stop him. Suddenly, it becomes quiet when Taesik enters the place and Har-young is reunited with her father. Soon, Chunso takes them all to the library, where Jagal is a little confused at their arrival. It looks like they have made a short stop on their way to the Lesser Sun Palace. Taesik also wants to know why Jagal told the young leader to look for him, and it looks like a fight might break out between them any time. Two old men fighting is all we keep looking for, right? This is when Chunso promises to take care of them as long as they all go to be living together at the Lesser Sun Palace. When Jagal tells him that he needs to increase his influence or decrease the other palace's influence before the festival, he surely cuts right down to the chase. All the demon cult palaces have their individual martial arts groups, and each palace master holds the highest position within the cult. Chunso thinks that they might even be more powerful than the orthodox sects. His thoughts are interrupted by Har-young, who apologizes for misunderstanding him before and thanks him for giving her and her father a separate building at the palace. Suddenly, the merchant and pleasure's palaces request to meet him, and he remembers that Jagal had told him about the competition within these palaces. Of course, there will be people who want to assassinate the young leader now, and others will still want to join hands with him. The only way he can become the cult leader is by playing along and cause a divide between the palaces, since the Sun Palace is too weak to defend itself against their forces. Chunso has already decided to start with Chan Se-man, the merchant palace master, in order to become the leader that he wants. The merchant palace and the pleasure palace envoys have gathered outside the Lesser Sun Palace with their whole squad. Ji-ha-mi, the pleasure palace envoy, even mocks Chun-amu for trying to assassinate the young leader before. This is when Chunso arrives there, and everyone pays respect to him. Soon they go inside, and Ji-ha-mi has a private word with the young leader. She obviously tries to flirt with him, while Chunso tries to remain patient with her. Finally, she comes to the point and invites him to her palace to enjoy the pleasures of life, until Taesik tells her off for threatening the young leader's life. Hearing him, Ji-ha-mi gets really frustrated and attacks him, while Taesik prepares to defend himself since Chunso has told him not to kill her. Yoltak hears the commotion inside Chunso's room and tells the rest of the Pleasure Palace squad to leave while Taesik disarms Ji-ha-mi, who is surprised at his indestructible physique. Chunso is also disappointed that the Pleasure Palace sent someone who doesn't even know how to use her sword, and threatens to hang her head in her own palace, but he decides to not waste his time, telling her to inform his master that she should come in person next time. Telling her to leave, he turns to Taesik, who warns him that Ji-ha-mi won't take the disrespect lightly, so he offers to get rid of her for him. Hearing this, Chunso tells him that he should never really kill anyone until he orders him to do so. Hopefully, he'll listen to those orders. On the other hand, Ji-ha-mi comes out and everyone is shocked at her ragged condition when Chunso moves to Chun-ami as he is ready to deal with the merchant palace now. Meanwhile, Ye-hwa is really grumpy back at her place, who is once again screaming that she doesn't want to marry Chunso when her father overhears and comes into her room to investigate. Ye-hwa's father tells her to draw her sword while she screams that she doesn't want to get married, so he tells her to cut through him first. She does as told and goes away as stubborn as ever. Her father then summons the squad leader, telling him to bring the young leader so he can prove that his martial art is at a level that she is satisfied with. On the other hand, Chunso is on his way to the merchant palace with Chun-amu, where the young leader threatens to kill him for being the second son when Chun-birang stops him. Seeing, Chunso realizes that the merchant palace can be quite sneaky, but he finds Birang to be quite an interesting guy and decides to trust him this time. Soon they reach the merchant palace, which is really beautiful as it's built above a river. However, Yoltak looks scared when a guy named Hyung-min comes out to greet them. It looks like the Blood Arts Palace's eldest son, Ya Yu-jin, has arrived at the merchant palace to remind the master about a certain promise, but Chan Se-min doesn't want to talk about it yet. Hearing this, he asks to meet Chun-ami and is not pleased to find out that he has gone to the Lesser Sun Palace to meet the young leader. He decides to go out and look for him, which makes Chan Se-min think about how rude his behavior is. On the other hand, it is revealed that Yul-tak is Ya Eugene's younger brother, who meets up with Chunso, making him wonder if he is on his side. Both of them have an awkward exchange, and Yul-jin goes on to talk to Ami, who is scared that he is there for them. Later, Chunso finds out that Yul-jin is currently ranked at number 15th in the Sun Cult, even though he doesn't even look like he's 30 yet. There's a tense atmosphere, and Yul-tak is evidently feeling awkward with his friends. It turns out that he has never received recognition from his father because he is his concubine's son. However, his older brother has always taken care of him. They discuss that the Blood Arts Palace might be well connected with the Merchant Palace, so they need information about how they might work against them. This is when Barang comes to take Chunso to the Palace Master with a different face, which makes him angry that he has deceived him with a mask before. Chunso decides to leave and not do any business with the Merchant Palace, when Barang apologizes to him and is ready to do anything to appease him. Chunso is making Barang write down that he will annihilate all of the Lesser Sun Palace, and if he breaks this promise, he'll be considered a traitor. This way, even if Ma Chunso comes to any harm, it will be Barang who is held accountable in the end. Then he goes to meet Chan Se-min, who acts all sweet with the young leader by giving him gifts, but Chunso is not fooled so easily, and he gives him an earful by locking him in the guest room instead of asking for forgiveness for his son's crimes. Chan Se-min tries to play it cool and invites him to stay there when Chunso goes over to sit on his seat, telling him that he has no interest in becoming the cult leader. Hearing this, Chan gets more excited and gives him the Sacred Fire demonic dagger. The Merchant Palace is not even ready to support his claim to be the cult leader, and Chan is ready to help him get his rightful place, which confuses Chunso too much to even speak. Chan thinks that it's basically blasphemy to consider anyone else being the cult leader, and Chunso totally agrees with him. This is when Chan wonders why he is so interested to know about his dealings with Yul-jin, when he is not even smart enough to notice such details. Was Chunso living like a corpse previously or what? Of course, Chan starts questioning him about his new bodyguard and accuses him of conspiring with the other palaces against him, when Chunso notices that he has increased his internal energy. Before going back, Chunso tells him to think carefully about his decisions and see which leader can offer him the best deal, and announces that he will be going to the Pleasure Palace now. Chan asks him to stay at his palace for a few days, but is frustrated that the young leader has asked for 30% of his assets. Later, Chan talks to Barang about the entire situation, who thinks that it might be the Elders Association who is conspiring against them. Furthermore, they decide to bring in Chunso at the right time, while Barang hangs around the Pleasure Palace keeping an eye on him. It looks like the Minister of War has brought 10,000 troops to block off the horse market and its surroundings, and the rumors are that the Emperor's brother is taking over for him. The situation at Oirats is also getting pretty serious, who are acting up and killing people just because the cult leader isn't around. It turns out that Yul-tak is not ready to believe about the Oirats doing something terrible since he grew up there, while Chunso believes that they're probably killing and imprisoning people on the Blood Arts Palace's request. Maybe he should come up with a plan to save them. The next day, Chunso has left his friends alone to go on a secret mission after ordering them to go on to the Lesser Sun Palace themselves. The young leader looks like he's going to the Oirats with his mask on, and the mission seems to be on. Manhwa, the White Martial support squad leader from the Blood Arts Palace, reaches the Oirats Plains and cuts down a few men as easily as cutting bread, while Yul-jin goes in to meet the Oirats Grand Master, Ye-san. Ye-san is basically the ringleader of the tribe who wants to become the next Genghis Khan apparently, and tells Yul-jin to go back running to his father. Of course, Yul-jin has to inform him that Wu Geom is here with his force since Ye-san has imprisoned their emperor, basically declaring war. Yul-jin also promises to settle the disrespect he has shown to him, and leaves the Grand Master to his own devices. Yul-jin goes on his way back home when Chunso makes a sudden appearance, but obviously no one can recognize him because of the mask. It's interesting for Chunso to meet Yul-jin so suddenly, and wonders if he was in Oirats. He tries to make some small talk, which irritates Manhwa, who is resting on a rock because of her injury. Chunso goes over to talk to her after noticing that her injuries are too deep, and offers to treat her wounds, which makes Yul-jin agree, as he doesn't want his subordinate to suffer. He's not half as bad as the young leader thought. Furthermore, Chunso tells him the way to the Central Plains and starts missing his old life as Yang there while describing the people and the best views to him, telling him to go to talk to the people there himself before forming a judgment. Ma Chunso starts to go back, telling him that he will have to fulfill one request of his someday in return for his help, and goes away without revealing his identity, which is smart, because he doesn't know if they'll be drinking wine together or fighting in the future. Soon, Chunso reaches a tent in the middle of the forest and watches a member of the Orats torture a young woman from the Central Plains until she stabs herself with a hairpin. He surely doesn't like what he sees, judging from his expression. Chunso looks at all the bodies spread in the forest, and it's unreal how brutal these Orats can be. He comes out of the shadows when they charge at him to kill him as well. However, Chunso is not an easy opponent, who stands against the whole group of them alone. He uses the Supreme Imperial 10 martial arts series and kills all of them as brutally as they kill the people of the Central Plains. At the end, he realizes that his little killing spree might end up killing him if he doesn't reach 10 stars in his training. Later, he enters the tent to find a young boy sitting proudly, and he looks like an important hostage. The young boy informs him about where the prisoners are kept by the Orats and introduces himself as Zhu Qizhen, and it turns out that he is the emperor of the country. Zhu Qizhen asks for Chunso's help by saying that he needs to survive as he needs to meet someone after getting out of captivity. Therefore, he agrees to let the young emperor come along with him. Before they move along, Chunso tries to look for horses, but the bad news is that some military horses are apparently running towards them only, so they run for their lives. When they finally do get some horses, a whole army of horses runs after them to capture the emperor, while Chunso scolds himself for getting involved in the kids' trouble. It looks like the Grand Master is personally chasing them too, who is obviously not an average warrior. Therefore, Chunso has to use the divine arts to return the arrow back to him, but gets a little shocked when Ye-san dodges it in an instant. Chunso is content with delaying their pursuit for now, while Ye-san is also surprised that there are strong people who want to save the abandoned emperor, deciding to go toward the prison and wait for them there. On the other hand, Chunso and Zhu Qizhen's horses almost fall off a cliff when he jumps off to save the emperor from meeting a terrible fate. It looks like he is dead, which is why Zhu Qizhen starts crying and declaring how grateful he is that a commoner died for him, until Chunso comes back on top of the mountain fully alive. Well, that certainly was embarrassing. Soon, they let the horse go, even though Qizhen doesn't like walking in the dirt. He really can be a bratty kid sometimes. They sit down to rest while Chunso tells him a bit about the Murim tribe and reveals that he is looking for the imprisoned people, which is chivalrous of him. Zhu Qizhen is surprised to find out that Chunso is from the demonic cult, since he only knows that cult to be traitors. Thankfully, he doesn't lose his mind and quiets down when he realizes that Chunso has done nothing wrong to him. The next day, they come across a prison filled with military officers of the Central Plains, but Chunso realizes that Ye-san is already waiting there for them. This is when Zhu Qizhen reveals that he has never wanted to be the emperor until now, and goes out in the open to give up his life for his people. Ye-san orders his men to kill the emperor, but Chunso is faster than them, who saves the kid from any harm. He's growing used to him, isn't he? A few seconds later, Chunso can be seen abandoning the emperor so that Ye-san's men can kill him and leave the prisoners alone for him to free. However, he decides against it and saves the kid from the incoming attacks. Ye-san obviously wants to see how good Chunso is now, and it looks like they are ready to fire arrows at him. Thankfully, he has the heavenly demon divine arts at his disposal and manages to stop all the arrows in a second. Ye-san is clearly impressed with him and starts exchanging pleasantries until they have to fight one-on-one. Chunso is quite amazed to see that Ye-san is too powerful. Therefore, Chunso decides to go all out on his power in a single strike. Ye-san manages to withstand his attack once more and gets ready to finish the fight at last. Ye-san and Chunso start clashing once again, while the prisoners looking on wondering who this mysterious person is fighting the Grandmaster alone. Soon, Chun-So feels like he might lose, which is why he has to resort to using his sick kick's secret technique, leading him alone to the forest where he takes out his demonic sword to end the fight. The two are still going at it when it starts looking like Ye-san's patience has run out and he really wants to just end his life and go back to his barbaric men. There's another member of the demon cult who is cutting down all the Orad members when he notices a light from far away, while Zhu Qizhen notices the same thing and starts thinking that Chun-So is dead. Meanwhile, Chun-So is about to kill Ye-san, who has evidently given up, and informs him that the master of the Blood Arts Palace is the dangerous person he needs to look out for. This information is of course in exchange for him to spare his life, and Ye-san goes away on his horse. Chun-So then moves on to release all of the prisoners who go on their separate ways, while Zhu Qizhen decides to go and meet his empress, thanking the masked man for saving them. Back at the Blood Arts Palace, the palace master Yu Yul-chan gets to know about the recent developments, including the preparations of the Mig Cult Festival and the return of the young leader. Furthermore, they find out that a masked man called the Black Sun has saved the emperor as well as defeated Ye-san, and he realizes that the Grand Master might be cutting his ties with him. He's clearly not happy with this bit of news. On the other hand, Chun-So has returned back to his palace and is excited to see his weird friends again. On the other hand, Siwal has gotten orders from the Pleasure Palace Master to assassinate the young lady residing in the Lesser Ming Palace and take Ji Hami along with her. Berang, who has been quietly watching over everything, spots them heading towards the palace and suddenly remembers the letter Chun-So made him write. Berang decides to save the Lesser Ming Palace, while Chun-So goes to meet Jagal and shows him the dragon plaque that Ye-san gave him. He really needs to figure out what it is and why he warned him against the Blood Arts Palace. Chun-So then tells him about his conversation with Zhang Seimin, and they laugh over the state of the lesser palaces. Even though the Merchant Palace has given a lot of money into the Blood Arts Palace, they might break out in rage now that their escort warriors are imprisoned. However, Ye-san has become the great Khan of the Northern Yuan now. Therefore, the Merchant Palace can no longer act recklessly. His eldest son, Chun Jae-sang, is his biggest strength, who is out on a mission too. Therefore, Chun-So decides to get both Jae-sang and Berang together. This is when he finds out that the Pleasure Palace has sent assassins to the Lesser Ming Palace, and he departs to see the palace master in a fit of rage. There have been rumors going around about the young leader misbehaving with Ji Hami when the Pleasure Palace master Han So-so arrives, clearly displeased with these rumors. When she is about to kill one of the gossipers, her dagger is stopped by Chun-So, who reveals himself in front of everyone. The two sit down to talk, when he asks to be taken to her abode to save the people around from being murdered by her. Her confidence clearly indicates that she is a high-level martial artist and knows that this woman only cares about herself and her palace. Chun-So agrees to make a bet with her when she calls her girls and asks him to stay at her palace for 2 days. If he manages to enjoy his time, she'll let him know what happened in the past. Of course, he bets that he will erase her palace and make all of them his after 2 days, which shocks Han So-so. Han So-so agrees to her condition and tells him to come to find the 6th floor room, making him even more determined to find her. On the other hand, Taesik is training Yul-tak to fight so he can protect Har-young, even though he clearly doesn't want to protect her. Soon, Taesik leaves him alone to go to the blacksmith, instructing him to keep training harder. Meanwhile, Chun-So saves the person that Han So-so tried to kill and goes to the 6th floor, where he is welcomed by a group of pretty girls who want him to play with them. The women of the demonic cult look much scarier than the men for sure. He figures that all 13 women are using the bewitching technique on him, and he quickly needs to find a way to save himself. Chun-So soon gets out of the grip of the women surrounding him and reaches the one girl who is playing a magical instrument, which is the core of the bewitching technique. He has defeated them so easily, and the bewitching atmosphere is gone when he gets to meet one of his ex-girlfriends. Yu Wool, who keeps talking about the good times they had together. On the other hand, Jihami has reached the Lesser Ming Palace and lands in front of Yultak and Haryung with her group of assassins, and Yultak believes that she is here because she loves him. He's quite delusional, but the confidence is admirable. However, soon they find out that Jihami is actually here to kill Haryung, and they attack her instantly. It looks like Yultak is ready to protect Haryung, as he believes that Jihami's target is all messed up. But thankfully, Taesik arrives to start the actual fight before Yultak embarrasses himself. Back at the Pleasure Palace, Chunso meets a strange little girl called Seumi on the 7th floor before going to the next floor. Sewol really doesn't want him to reach the top floor, so she decides to send more women to fight him off. Of course, he defeats them too, and Sewol is shocked that he has managed to climb all the floors in less than 2 hours without leaving a trace of blood. She figures that he has learned the art of bedchamber, therefore she sends the male spirits to fight him. Taesik is enraged with Jihami and her group of assassins for trying to kill his daughter, and prepares to kill them all. It turns out that he received a letter in the market informing him about the secret attack at the palace, and he clearly got lucky to be back in time. He begins to take care of the assassins and kills them brutally one by one until he tells Yultak to take care of the rest as part of his training. Yultak starts dueling with one of them and then eventually defeats him, before screaming like a girl when he sees so much blood in front of him. Taesik observes that he is not as bad a warrior as he shows before turning to Jihami. However, Yultak steps in to spare her life, which shocks her. Chunso finally comes face to face with the male spirits at the Pleasure Palace, and he's a bit surprised to find guys at the brothel. Of course, he manages to use his great bedchamber techniques to take care of the men's spirit squad and makes his way to the next floor. Soon, he finds Sewol, who advises him to leave after 2 days and is ready to fight in order to stop him from racing the Han Soso. Hearing her, he decides to wait until 2 days pass and lays down in front of her. On the other hand, Yultak abandons Jihami until Barong arrives to save them, and it turns out that he recognizes Taesik from before and is extremely scared of him. Barong knows that Taesik's energy will never get used up, no matter how much he fights, and confesses about being aware of his identity, but swears to never reveal the truth to anyone, only to get his life spared. Taesik agrees to let him live as long as he keeps his mouth shut, and as Jihami might be useful. On the other hand, Chunso wakes up after 2 days have passed at the Pleasure Palace, but Sewol is still not ready to let him go to Han Soso. Of course, this is when Taesik reaches out there with a captured Jihami. Han Soso has no option but to agree to have a word with him, and it looks like Chunso has won the bet when he goes inside the Palace Master's room. Han Soso didn't expect him to come with Taesik, and wants to know what art he used to climb all the floors of the building. She has also figured out that he isn't working with the Merchant Palace, and it's obvious that she has reached the highest level of the Supreme Demon Realm. The two keep asking questions to each other and try to understand the motives of the other person, and he finds out that she really doesn't believe that he has attained the heavenly demon arts. She's really not going to let him go easy for messing with Jihami, and the two start fighting when he shows her his new moves with the heavenly demon art, which makes her speechless. Even though she is a dangerous woman, she only wants to spare the rest of her subordinates at the palace. Han Soso reveals that everyone at the Pleasure Palace has either been sold or kidnapped. The Pleasure Palace is basically an abode for them to survive in a hell-like place. It seems like she hates the Ming cult more than anyone else. When Chunso tells her that he wants to transform the cult and create a place where everyone can live together, he asks her to help him with his mission, and after a lot of thinking, she finally ends up making a deal to assist him. He also tells him that he needs to get rid of the Slaughter Palace Master, Gu Yangrong, if he wants his plan to succeed, who only wants to erase the Ming cult from the earth. It seems like he is just the kind of person who likes killing for fun, since he doesn't even want to become the cult leader. It's shown that the Slaughter Palace Master is just a sadist who likes to inflict pain on people. Even though he looks like a kid, he's just a messed up child and a bit more psychotic than anyone else out there. At the Merchant Palace, John Se-min gets a letter from Barong, informing him that he has decided to stay at the Lesser Ming Palace to stay close to the young leader, which makes John happy. and decides to invest in him big time. Meanwhile, Barong and Jihami are being trained by Taesik at the Lesser Ming Palace, and they look like they are being tortured. However, Barong realizes that he is getting stronger with all that training and starts to get influenced by the palace gradually. On the other hand, Chunso introduces Han Soso to Jagak, where she tells them about the Slaughter Palace's special request to assassinate the important figures. They also decide to find out what the Murim alliance is doing. They decide to go visit the Slaughter Palace next, while Chunso comes up with plans to take down the 7 palaces. Dan Ji-ho, Yahweh's brother, is also against their engagement, as the rumors have spread about his good times at the Pleasure Palace. Of course, his father is not ready to listen, even though he knows that his son is really talented. Therefore, Dan Ji-ho decides to take matters into his own hands to stop the marriage, when his father also orders his squad leader to drag Chunso to their palace. Soon, the whole squad reaches the Lesser Ming Palace to take Chunso, when Yultak and Ji-ho start off with a war of words. However, the misunderstanding gets even worse when he spots Jihami standing inside the palace. When Chunso comes out to see them, he gets the shock of his life to find out that he has a fiancée, since he had no idea that someone can get married to a pervert like him. At the end, he agrees to go to the Sword Pillar Palace with Dan Ji-ho, just to shut him up at this point. Yehua tells her nanny that she wants to leave her palace, revealing that she has found a partner for herself. It looks like she wants to have as much fun as the young leader had at the Pleasure Palace, and has found the perfect partner in a masked man who appears out of nowhere and is named the Black Sun. How shocked will she be when she finds out that she is talking about Chunso himself? The young leader arrives at the palace at the perfect time, where he is still confused about his so-called fiancée that he doesn't even know about. This is when he runs into Yehua herself and misunderstands her as the servant, telling her to go back to the Lesser Ming Palace. Of course, she doesn't listen to him and sneaks out to find the Black Sun. On the other hand, Yehua's father, the palace master, Dan Jung-hak, appears in front of Chunso, challenging him to a duel, when he finds that his father-in-law is really strong and gets defeated for the first time. He tells Chunso to stay at his palace for a few days, handing him over to Dan Ji-ho for some training. Dan Ji-ho tells his men that the young leader is joining the extermination unit, which obviously doesn't make sense to anyone. Chunso tries to exchange some greetings, but doesn't get a warm response. It's a tough crowd out here. On the other hand, Taesik doesn't like that Chunso has gone to the Sword Pillar Palace alone, but decides to not worry too much, as he believes that Dan Jung-hak won't harm him. He discusses their winning prospects with Jagak and Han Soso, where they agree that they need to hide their alliance from the other palaces. Han Soso also reveals that the Blood Arts Palace has called for a meeting of the palaces. Therefore, Taesik is advised to go to the Merchant Palace with Barong to increase their votes. Meanwhile, Chunso is having a hard time with his new squad, since he is not even being fed. But he's just glad that he's getting a good idea about the ranks of these guys here. He also decides to help the young Dan Yarong, who is being bullied by the older guys, but the young boy refuses his help. The Slaughter Palace Master, Gu Yang-rong, also gets a letter from Ya-yul Chun, and it looks like it's an invitation for the palace meeting. It turns out that he has been torturing Mo Yang-wi, who knows Yang as well. Dan Jung-hak finds out that Yehua has run away, but decides to not do anything about it, as he first has to find out how sincere the young leader is. He's surprised to find out that Chunso is staying silent, despite all the bullying, and wonders how he managed to block his attack when they were fighting the previous day. He plans for the extermination unit to go to the Beauty Peak with the young leader, and soon the squad is on its way with all the members. Chunso finds out that everyone in the squad is an orphan who came looking for a surname, which is why Yehua is like a family member to them. Well, no wonder they hate him then. Yarong is instructed to stick with Chunso when he tells Dan Ji-ho that it's wrong for them to bully Yarong. Hopefully he'll listen to him. Soon it's night, and it looks like the squad is going to starve for 2 days, but Chunso is not ready for that and finds a human-faced viper to eat. Of course, he blocks its venom gland before biting off its head, which disgusts everyone, but they get over it and jump in to find more vipers to eat. The next day, they do some rock wall climbing, where Chunso tells tells Danjiho that he doesn't want the engagement with Yewa either, when he realizes that he can't get married to any of his fiancées. This is when he senses a strange energy from a cave nearby, telling everyone to run while the sudden wind makes Danjiho almost fall off. Junso decides to cut off the rope to help him out, which makes the rest of the extermination unit fall to the ground. Yorong realizes that he starts going up the mountain suddenly and spots Junso, who has saved them all from falling to their deaths. The rest of the unit also decides to help their brother climb the cliff and find every single member who has gone missing. On the other hand, Junso is trying to lead the few unit members to the top. He notices that Yorong can climb the cliff better than all of his seniors. He also tells him that he doesn't want people to follow him just because he's strong, but rather he wants to gain their trust. Soon, he makes all the fog disappear and reaches a house which looks abandoned. However, he notices Chunso's handwriting on the walls, which gives him the shock of his life. Danjiho reaches near the house and finds it odd since he has never seen it in Beauty Peak before. However, when the rest of the extermination unit turns up there, looking for them, he can't help but wonder how idiotic they are. Chunso reads the lines on the walls and doesn't think that the real Chunso could be philosophical enough to write it. Or maybe he just doesn't know what kind of person he is. He decides to look for more clues when he finds a book that says Slaughter Palace, which angers him. Soon, he goes out to find almost all of the extermination unit outside and is glad to find that they stick by each other. This is when Danjiho makes him say that he saved the unit by mistake. However, it looks like the unit doesn't hate the young leader as much as before anymore. They might have gotten a little bit closer. Later that night, Yorong has a heartfelt talk with his senior Shigang, who reassures him that they will get out of the Beauty Peak alive. Yorong then goes on to patrol around when he spots a strange shadow which leaps at him, making him run away screaming at the top of his lungs. He tells Chunso and the rest of his seniors about what he saw, and the unit decides to go out and investigate. However, Chunso is left behind at the house. Soon, he decides to follow the unit with Yorong, as he wants to save them and find out what the real Chunso saw in this place. On the other hand, Danjiho and the rest of the unit arrive at the abandoned village in the middle of Beauty Park. The unit decides to spread out and search the village, and soon they find out that Yorong was right and there is a strange shadow-like person who is trying to attack everyone. Taeyong gets into an intense fight with the shadow when Danjiho comes running, telling him to dodge. On the other hand, Shigang finds Chunso and Yorong and is not happy since they are defying orders from the unit leader. However, Chunso gets to work and figures that people are living in the village for a reason, and they use the fog to hide something. He knows that only Jagal Tong is capable of doing something like this, and ends up kicking Shigang for crossing the line until Yorong tells them that they should go to the north of the village, as something might be there since he was born in this place. All the unit members are being attacked by strange red creatures in the village, while Chunso realizes that Yorong as they watch an intense battle between the extermination squad and these creatures. Of course, Chunso joins in on the fun too. Meanwhile, Danjiho saves Taeyong from one of these creatures and realizes that they explode when their hearts are damaged. On the other hand, Chunso reveals himself to be quite strong while fighting with the Jiangshi creatures, when he threatens all the unit members that he'll kill them if they despise weak people again. Danjiho is standing in front of a door, which seems to be like a fortress or something, and they go in to check it out. Later, they find out that it is a tomb when they reach a coffin. However, a whole group of Jiangshi appears to stop them when they begin to open it. It certainly looks like they have messed with something they shouldn't have. The Jiangshi attack Danjiho and Taeyong. While they are trying to cut off their heads, however, there's just too many of them to deal with, making them wish they had just one more person to fight alongside them. Their wish is granted instantly when Danbong arrives, and the three of them strategize to get rid of the Jiangshi while preserving their stamina. Soon, they stand in the middle of the creatures' corpses, and it looks like their plan worked. However, they don't even get a second to relax as another Jiangshi appears that can control the internal energy with a whole new group of creatures. Thankfully, Chunso also shows up with his little group and they start attacking the creatures like it's a piece of cake. Soon, Chunso figures that the Jiangxi leader, the manipulator, needs to be taken down and follows it to a grave that has hundreds of skeletons. Chunso approaches the manipulator when she starts making more Jiangxi with her screams, which is quite crazy. Therefore, he decides that such a monster shouldn't be left alive. He reaches the 90% milestone of heavenly demon arts and kills it when he reads a message on the wall behind that promises to keep killing people until the end of time. On the other hand, the Sword Pillar Palace is dispatching a squad to find Dan Jiho's unit and Chunso as they can't deal with the accusations of trying to assassinate the young leader. Thankfully, the unit appears back in time and Dan Jiho is fired from his position as the unit leader. However, Chunso steps in to take the blame in order to save the rest of the unit from any punishment. Later, Chunso is talking to Dan Jung-hak when he figures that the Jiangxi definitely hated the real Chunso, which might mean that he was involved in the making of those creatures somehow. But he is more suspicious of Dan Jung-hak now, since he is the one who sent them to the Beauty Peak who asked him if he saw anything there. Dan Jung-hak challenges him to a fight if he wants to know the answers, and Chunso gives him a real fight this time, revealing himself to be the heavenly demon. It's hard for Dan Jung-hak to believe that he is facing off against the heavenly demon, while Chunso borrows all the swords from his walls to attack him. Of course, the Palace Master is quite strong, and his blows are heavy and varied, which makes him a difficult opponent. Their fight gets more intense while both of them keep attacking each other with their best techniques. Dan Jung-hak wants to fight to the end with a single strike. However, Chunso still has one more sword and he manages to use the complete Supreme Imperial 10 Martial series for the first time. Observing his skills, even Dan Jung-hak falls to his knees and declares that he is truly amazing. This is when Chunso realizes that he is not the ringleader behind whatever happened at the Beauty Peak. When he starts revealing that the real Chunso went to the Beauty Peak a year before he went into isolation, after he tried to break off the engagement with Manhwa. Of course, he went missing then and the entire martial squad was mobilized to find him, but he remained missing for 10 years. It also turns out that the real Chunso was the one who brought Yorong back from the Beauty Peak and entrusted him to Dan Jung-hak. Suddenly, the entire extermination unit appears with Dan Jiho in the lead, threatening to cut down the Palace Master if he hurts the young leader. Didn't they all hate him with their guts? However, the Palace Master also reveals that they will be following the young leader's authority, which makes the entire unit happy. Back at the Beauty Peak, though, the manipulator Jiangxi comes out from beneath the rubble, and it might just be ready for some revenge. A Murim Alliance patriarch crashes the palace meeting by mistake while looking for Yang, and is kidnapped by Gu Yangrong. The meeting starts when Ya Yulchin arrives, who starts off by informing the rest of the Palace Masters about their strained relationship with Ye San. He also declares that the Ming Cult Festival will be held next month, and Han Soso is not happy to hear that the Blood Arts Palace is already acting like they own the whole cult. They decide to first figure out who the next leader is going to be before taking care of their enemies, while Yulchin also accuses the Merchant Palace Master for conspiring against his alliance with Ye San. Yulchin brings out his warrior, So Wongo, to fight against Chang Se-min's champion. And thankfully, Chan's new fighter is Taesik himself. The fight starts off right away, and Taesik clearly has an advantage over his opponent. It turns out that Jagal sent Taesik to the Merchant Palace with Barong just to save Chan from Yulchin's accusations. And his plan seems to be working as Taesik is dominating So Wongo. Yulchin recognizes him and realizes that he has underestimated Chan Se-min. Therefore, he walks out after ending the meeting. Before he leaves, Taesik directs his attention to the Elders Association as potential suspects for sabotaging his alliances, while the Merchant Palace realizes that he doesn't have anywhere to go. Back at the Blood Arts Palace, Yulchin is clearly not happy with Chan Se-min and informs his son Yuljin that he suspects the First Elder of turning the Merchant Palace against him. Yuljin informs Wang Yi's brother Hido of his death and prepares to go to Tibet. On the other hand, it's revealed that continuous rations are being sent to the Tear Creek village after Jiang Chun died, and there were no drugs to kill their souls. A member of the Hao clan, Yang Myo, follows the masked Chunso and leads him to the Slaughter Palace where he is forced with numerous murderous demons. This is when he is attacked by all the invisible forces of the palace, and it looks like he's going to have to try harder to get away this time. On the other hand, Mo Yong-wei is inside the slaughter palace and is being accompanied by number 3, who is Gu Yongrong's special fighter. Number 3 reveals that he was abandoned by the Orthodox sects, left to be raised by the slaughterhouse palace, and goes away telling him to pray that he dies before Gu Yongrong gets back. Mo Yong-wei obviously misses Yang even more now, while Chun-so faces off against number 3, who mocks him for trying to save the Murim alliance leader. Hearing the news about Mo Yong-wei being here, Chun-so can't help but think about his previous life when they were close friends. As the Slaughter Palace Marshal Squad charges at him, Chun-so's mind remains black and he can only think about his old friend. Chun-so reveals his heavenly demon form and starts fighting the Slaughter Palace fighters and cuts them all down with single strikes. Number 3 tries to make a strategy to defeat him. However, Chun-so is too fast for his tricks and dodges all of their attacks. Soon, he reaches Mo Yong-wei after defeating everyone, and his friend recognizes him as Yang. He realizes that he needs to take him to the Poison Palace to save him, and begins to take him there while they talk about the good old times. When they finally reach outside the Poison Palace, Chun-so notices that he can't hear him breathing anymore, and he realizes that he really did miss him. Gu Yongrong reaches back at the Slaughter Palace to find his men half dead and orders his men to kill anyone who was involved with this ambush. Well, technically, it wasn't an ambush, since only one guy managed to deal with all of them. On the other hand, Chun-so has taken off his mask and brought Mo Yong-wei to the Poison Palace Master. The Palace Master obviously thinks Yong-wei is a corpse and doesn't understand why the young leader is making such a big fuss over this guy. He begs the Palace Master, the Divine Physician, to save his friend, who tells him that his soul is still lingering in the body. Therefore, he'll live if he is made into a live Jiangshi. This is a problem for Chun-so, as he doesn't want his friend to turn into one, but he has to make this tough choice to save him too. He decides to fuse his internal energy into Yong-wei, and soon they manage to save him without turning him into a Jiangshi, because of Chun-so's pure demonic energy. Mo Yong-wei wakes up with the energy of a supreme demon and runs off to attack Chun-so, but finds that he is unable to touch him since he is his master now. He has literally become a toy puppet now, and he's clearly not enjoying it. Chun-so talks to him alone after kicking the palace master out of the room, telling him that he can go and live freely wherever he wants. Obviously, he can't tell him that he is his close friend Yang, who has been reincarnated. Soon, Yong-wei is on his way back home to the Murim Alliance, and Ma Chun-so goes back to ask the Poison Palace Master if he made the Jiangshi back at the Beauty Peak. He denies making the Jiangshi, but says that it's possible the Crimson Jiangshi of the Beauty Peak is feeding on the corpses, and it's possible that it has come from Western China. He also reveals that the real Chun-so was his patient, who was too sick and started using drugs to comfort himself. This is exactly why he went into isolation to learn the heavenly demon arts to cure himself, but ended up dying. The Palace Master tells him that becoming the cult leader will not be easy, and he advises him to go and hide somewhere until they find out that Yong-wei cannot leave his master. Therefore, he has to go with him to the Lesser Ming Palace. On their way back to the Lesser Ming Palace, the masked Chun-so runs into Manhwa, who asks him if he has been to the Tear Creek village. She figures that he is probably trying to imitate the Black Sun, and goes away when the Slaughter Palace shows up. Chun-so orders Yong-wei to stay still, while Manhwa misbehaves with the group of assassins, and he cries out that she is his maidservant to save her. A fight is about to break out when Ming Heavenly Demon Squad leader Bai Seik reveals Manhwa's true identity in front of everyone. It's quite a shock for Chun-so to find out that she is not his servant, but his fiancée, whom he insulted many times. The assassins soon leave, and Bai Seik turns to Chun-so and inquires him about why he is wearing a mask. It is pretty shady, to be honest. Manhwa offers Chun-so to become her escort warrior, and he is quite impressed with her. Maybe it's time to regret denying his marriage to her. She takes him away to save him from Bai Seik, and instructs him to go far away. On the other hand, Bai Seik goes to find the slaughterhouse assassins with an evil look on his face. Baiseg tells the assassins that he wants to help them look for the Black Sun and reveals that there's nothing to find in the Tear Creek village. He directs their attention to Yewa, therefore they go to her. He clearly wants a war to break out after the assassins kill Yewa, but his reasons are still unclear. They find the traces of the killing at the Slaughter Palace on her, asking her to come with them. She obviously tells them to get lost and tries to fight them off when they attack her. There are too many for her to fight alone, and it looks like she will lose until Chunso arrives there to save her. He borrows her sword and starts killing the assassins, and runs off with Yewa when he realizes that the assassins' leader has started to figure out that he is the Black Sun. On the other hand, the Murim Alliance's Sangang is extremely injured in a cave, and is only talking about a message that he wants to give to the young leader. Sangang is on the verge of death when he says that the young leader needs to be careful of Yulchun, and the dragon plaque is the symbol of the Heavenly Palace. It would have been more helpful, though, if he was a bit more specific before dying. Yewa is now certain that the masked Chunso is the Black Sun, and she reveals that she has been a bit curious about him. Moreover, she keeps saying how much she hates Chunso, which is a bit painful for him. This is when Yanghui arrives there, and they walk through the water peak where everyone is discussing rumors about the Black Sun attacking the Slaughter Palace. Suddenly, Hayang Myo shows up and reveals that she told Yanghui that he is the one who got him out of the Slaughter Palace after killing 147 assassins. She clearly has a crush on Yanghui and can't stop drooling over him, but reveals that the slaughterhouse is looking for Yewa now. The sad news is that everyone in the Tear Creek village is dead now, and Chunso is furious with this news. Yewa figures out that it might be Baiseg who did that, but no one can say for sure right now, since they will have endless assassins coming after them from the Slaughter Palace. Chunso decides to kill Gu Yongrong and get rid of all the assassins, and tells Yang Myo to take Yewa back to the Sword Pillar Palace safely, and she finally kisses him before leaving. Yewa has reached the Sword Pillar Palace where Dan Jung-hak asks about her crush on the Black Sun, and Dan Jiho doesn't even like that she has proposed to some other guy when she has the young leader. The poor girl starts crying when her father orders for her to be taken to the Lesser Ming Palace to live so she can become physically close to her fiancé. Her dad's too progressive for his age, isn't he? At the Ming Palace, Baiseg takes some drugs to the Rancor emissaries, Li and Hogun, who look half dead with addiction. Later, he finds out that the Slaughter Palace assassins have still not managed to kill Yewa and the Black Sun. Those assassins were pretty useless then. Suddenly, a black hooded figure arrives behind him, who tells him to give up his heavenly dragon plaque and take a trip to hell. He begs for his life and reveals that Taesik has come back from hiding, which makes the hooded figure give him one more chance. On the other hand, Doga, who needs to deliver Sung Gong's message to Chunso, is kidnapped by the Slaughter Palace. Yang Hui asks Chunso the reason behind saving him, while he reveals that he had a dream about Yang when he was on the verge of dying, and he suspects that he isn't the young leader. Of course, Chunso can't tell him his secret and tries to play it cool and focuses back on his mission to kill Gu Yongrong, who looks like a child but is actually around 60 years old. Yang Hui also agrees to go with him to take his revenge, and the game is on. Meanwhile, Gu Yongrong is trying to connect the dots behind the Black Sun and Yang Hui's disappearance while he tortures Doga. Thankfully, Chunso and Yang Hui arrive just in time to put a pause to his bloodlust. Yang Hui attacks like a lunatic when he figures out that he is actually Jiangxi. Ga Yongrong plays some tricks and takes down Yang Hui, who becomes even stronger after taking a hit. They face off for a while until Gu Yongrong turns to Chunso and promises to kill him. Chunso already knows for sure that he can't leave Gu Yongrong alive and is amazed by his speed. He has to come up with a way to destroy Speed, and the two start clashing against each other. Thankfully, Chunso is proving to be too strong a foe for him when Yang Hui stands up to finish what he started. They also have a time crunch since his minions will be arriving soon. Therefore, Yang Hui uses his enhanced body energy and finally lands the killing blow to Gu Yongrong as revenge for his squad members. At the end, Yang Hui is too tired to walk, so Chunso has to carry him when he realizes that he's just like Yang. Yang Wei always felt a sense of familiarity with Chun-So, but the moment he carried him, it became obvious to him. He hugs his old friend Yang. When Chun-So spots Do-Ga, who is as good as dead, Do-Ga gives the message to him before dying and is quite confused about its significance. The two decide to leave the Slaughter Palace as soon as possible, while Yul-chun meets up with the Elders Association, who tell them that they might not be ready to give the young leader's position to him. Hearing this, Yul-chun threatens to kill them since everything is already on his side, and he reveals his plan of conquering Beijing. He sure is ambitious, therefore the elders decide to sit by and do nothing as always. On the other hand, Chun-So and Yang Wei have reunited as old friends. Yang Wei also reveals that the demonic cult was behind his death, and this information was given to him by Jagak. Hearing this, Chun-So takes him to Jagak, who greets them like the old days. Chun-So is surprised to find too many tunnels at the Jasper Ming Palace, which is Jagak's little pet project. He introduced Yang Wei to him as a Jiangshi since his face is covered. Jagak reveals that the Slaughter Palace is thankfully quiet for now, even though Gu Yangrong might be faking his death, which doesn't seem likely. The only one left is Yul-chun, and Chun-So has to defeat him with his own strength during the Great Heavenly Festival. Taesik and Han Soso are also introduced to Yang Wei, who has named himself the Black Shadow. And the good news is that there are too many talented martial artists at the Lesser Ming Palace. They figure that Yul-chun is probably going after the Merchant Palace since he needs their money for war, and he's probably raising an army on his own called the Heavenly Palace. It turns out that Chan Se-min is also moving into the Lesser Ming Palace, who is glad about avoiding Yul-chun, and also goes to meet Chun-So, who is having a meeting with everyone who is staying at his palace. The palace masters are given the position of law enforcer kings, while Jagak is the military advisor. Chang is shocked to find Han Soso there and figures out that he has been kept in the dark for a while. Chan Se-min is losing his mind as he realizes that he has been pushed into a trap, but decides to make a deal with Chun-So to save his life. He is ready to help him get rid of Yul-chun and reveals that he has taken about 50% of his profits this year. He also tells him that Yul-chun will go to the marketplace of Water Peak if he doesn't get all the money he wants. Therefore, Chun-So decides to monitor that place as well. In return for his help, Chan wants to become one of the hall leaders in the Lesser Ming Palace and wants the Merchant Palace to be solely responsible for trades after the festival. He agrees to the deal and tells his group to be on their toes and decides to prepare himself for his fight against Yul-chun, who is a much stronger opponent than the others. On the other hand, Manhwa is losing her patience with the extermination unit members who keep taking Chun-So's side and threatens to cut them all out if they get in her way. Meanwhile, a strange man is preparing to see Chun-So face off against Yul-chun, and he clearly can't wait for the big day to finally arrive. Yul-chun has reached Tibet to meet the Empire royalty Ibrahim with a lot of gifts and tells him about Ye-san declaring himself as the new Khan. He cuts right to the chase and promises to assist Ibrahim to become the next Sultan. In return, he just wants to borrow the assassination squad of the Timur Empire. At the Lesser Ming Palace, Yang Wei decides to talk things out with Jagak and reveals his true identity to him, declaring that he won't be able to mess with the Murim alliance. Jagak maintains that the Orthodox sect is their enemy, since the alliance has done nothing to help them. Of course, the old man remains stubborn in his ways until Yang Wei leaves. On the other hand, Chun-So is on his way to the Heavenly Demon Library with Yul-tak and meets up with the administrator, Mu Myung, who turns out to be close to his father. He soon enters the library and finds the third elder, Manhwa, inside, who is excitedly looking at a book. Manhwa introduces himself to Chun-So, and he remembers that he is familiar with the martial arts of China, as informed by Jagak, who wanted him to look for this man. He is a strange person, but looks harmless enough. Manhwa tells him to look for the martial arts form called the Hour of Mortality to find out how to fight with daggers, and goes away, leaving Chun-So all alone in the library. Manhwa goes out to see Bai Saik, and turns out that he wants Taesik to be taken care of. Well, now it's clear that he's the hooded figure who is controlling Bai Saik after all. Back at the library, Chunso starts studying about the Hour of Mortality and starts practicing moves to learn the art in order to break his own limits, but gets a shock when he finds Chunso's handwriting in the last page of the book. On the other hand, Yul-chun is surprised to find that Ga Yao-rong is actually dead, and wonders if the Black Sun even exists. He orders Hidu to get